to find her.
Yeah, I need to talk about this. So, for all those of you who are not League of Legends fans, first of all, valid. Second of all, you still need to watch Arcane. Now, at the time of recording this video, I have only seen the first 3 episodes. The next 3 come out today. I probably won't see them for a little bit. But this is a good series. And it is an amazing series for a D&D player. Why? Well, let's talk about that. Here is the simple fact of the matter. Arcane is a masterclass in creating a backstory for your character. The entire show's premise for the first 3 episodes is showing the backstory of a multitude of characters from the League of Legends game. Now, I do know League of Legends lore. I have played this game for a long time. Would I recommend literally anybody else play it? Absolutely not. It's not that fun of a game. Why I keep going back to it, Lord, who knows. But if you talk to anybody who likes League, that'll pretty much be the consensus. It's a hot topic. But the point is, I know a lot about the lore. Even if I don't like the game that much, the lore has always intrigued me, and I've loved the way that they've developed it over the years. This show does an amazing job of taking that lore and making it into something, but it's all about the backstory of a bunch of characters we all know and love. And it does such a good job of explaining how to make a backstory. And that is what I want to talk about. Will there be spoilers in this video? Yes, 100%. Please, I recommend you actually pause the video and go and watch these episodes. It is worth it even if you know nothing about League of Legends. But once you do, please come back because I'm going to talk about how you can use this to craft a masterful backstory for your character that does not go overboard. Okay, so what do I mean that this is a masterclass in backstory telling? Well, ultimately, it tells the backstories of a few different characters. Echo, Vi, Jinx, Jace, Victor, and there are a few other characters sprinkled in. We don't know much about them yet, we don't know how much they're going to play into the story, but it's really nailing down the backstory of these specific characters, these 5. And it really focuses on the first 2, Vi and Jinx. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it also tells the backstory of Caitlyn. I can't believe I forgot Caitlyn. Anyways, it's specifically talking about Vi and Jinx. Now, Vi and Jinx are sisters, and at this time, Jinx is actually known as a character named Powder. She's a small, timid little girl who tries her best to tinker and build and be able to move along with the big boys, to be able to go on the different jobs they do and the stealing and heists, and be able to prove that she's worth hanging out with her big sister. Meanwhile, Vi is a very rough and tumble leader. She's a young kid who has had it hard, but she's learning to do what she needs to survive, to take care of everybody else. Underneath that rough exterior, she has a heart of gold. She just wants to prove herself, to be there for her friends, to provide for them, to show that she's worth the trust that they have put in her. She is, in all forms and matter, a leader just trying to learn how to lead. And it's these 2 characters and the bond that they have that creates the initial backstory here. Now, the reason I want to talk about this and how it makes a good backstory is, if you've played the games or know anything about the lore, you know where these characters end up. Jinx ends up this sort of Harley Quinn-esque maniac who has the ability to build weapons of mass destruction and destroy everything and always get away with her crimes. And Vi ends up being this incredibly rough and tumble enforcer of the world with these massive mechanical gauntlets that can destroy walls and buildings. We know they end up to be, well, level 20 heroes, but this backstory shows them at level 1, if even that. And that's why I think it's so interesting. It shows how they begin to develop their abilities, but never goes into that point that we've all seen some backstories go where, oh, this one person who's going to be level 1 or level 3 at the start of the campaign who took on an entire army. No, it doesn't do that. It shows them doing what they can with what they have. Vi is a boxer. She's learned how to fight and punch, but she still can't really face up against a lot of the threats. Most of the entire first 3 episodes is spent with them running from their fights. And Powder, or Jinx, she keeps trying to make these weapons, make them work, but keeps rolling a nat 1 on her tinkering check. None of them will work, and she just keeps failing. And it takes these 2 aspects of these characters, and it begins to develop them into something more. We begin to see them trying to discover what it is that they can do in this world, while also beginning to go through the traumatic events that would become their backstory. Jinx, Powder, is very cared for by Vi, but Vi must take care of her. And while she tries to encourage her to do her tinkering, encourage her to embrace what she's good at, there's always that thought in the back of Vi's mind that this may lead to trouble, that this may cause issues. But she has to be supportive of her sister. She knows that her sister's worth something, but she has to prove it. And meanwhile, Vi, she keeps having to get in these fights, and there are many times she gets beaten to a pulp, but she keeps getting back up. She keeps refusing to give up. There's some examples of the things that she'll be able to do later in life, at higher levels. Eventually she'll have second wind, but right now, She just refuses to stay down. It's those different things that really show interesting ways of how these characters evolve. But it's as we get into episode 3 that the real masterful backstory begins. See, Powder, she's been trying so hard to create literally anything that will help her friends. And their surrogate father, Vander, gets kidnapped. He gets taken away and they watch some of their other friends get brutally murdered. It's horrific. And actually legitimately a heart-wrenching scene. Vi goes back to her friends. She has 2 of them. And she lets them know that they have to go save Vander. Jinx, she's created weapons. She's been encouraged by Vi. She's ready for this fight. But Vi tells her to stay back. Vi tells her, no, you cannot come. And yells at her, you're going to stay here. Because at the end of the day, Vi knows none of her inventions have worked. She's just going to be in danger. She's trying so hard to be a good sister, but in that moment she has crushed her little sister. And so Powder/Jinx, as they all go, is sobbing. She's hysterical. She knows that she's not going to be able to help them. And then she remembers an item that she stole in episode 1. A tiny blue marble with immense arcane power. The ability to blow up a building. She can do this. She can help. She picks up the marble. She begins to create this contraption that will be able to set it off. She goes to go save her sister. Meanwhile, her sister and her friends are actually creating a pretty successful escape attempt. They've managed to get into the bad guy's hideout, they've snuck past all the thugs, they've gotten to Vander, and they're beginning to unlock the chains that's keeping him down. He looks at all of them and he's confused. He says, what are you doing here? You have to get out. And they say, we're here to rescue you. And for a moment, he's proud of them. They got in, they managed to get there, and then his face falls. He says, how did you get here? And one of them looks up and says, we snuck in through a window. It was wide open. And they all realize this was intentional. This was a trap. And as all the bad guys, the villains, begin to surround them from outside, they realize that they don't have much of a choice. They're probably going to be stuck here. This moment, from here on, this is the perfect backstory. Because you see, Vander, he was this legendary warrior at some point, but he's since retired. Was a level 20 hero, is no longer. He had these metal gauntlets that were reinforced with these specific mechanics that could cause him to punch with weight unstoppable. And so Vi brought those along. And she is a boxer. And as she sees all these thugs way larger and stronger than her, she takes her gauntlets of ogre strength and puts them on. And she goes to go face them as Vander shouts at her to stop. Now this is where I was a little concerned. This is where in a backstory where I would stop and pause, because she takes on all of them. All these 15, 20 thugs way larger than her and stronger. She beats them all up. And that's where I would give pause ordinarily. Because that's exactly what I was talking about earlier. That level 1 character who somehow took on an army, but she has these gauntlets on. And she's shown that she can box. And yes, at this point in a backstory, some metal gauntlets are not going to do much. But if you put it in context of D&D, say that there's these magical items which her mentor had, the gauntlets of ogre strength which she put on. She's magically enforced, she has these weapons, but she's able to use her skill to take them on. It puts it in a different context, and I can work with that. But she shows, in that moment, she went from a level 1 to really embracing what she is, a fighter. And she takes them on. Eventually, one of them, somebody boosted up with this magical drug, overwhelms her and begins to fight and beat her down viciously. There is no way she can win as it beats and beats and beats, and she tries to fight back, but it is just not enough. She is, right now, facing a CR3 monster as a level 1 fighter. Gauntlets of ogre strength or no, she does not stand a chance. So she begins to scramble back. She goes back into the room where they're trying to get Vander out, and she locks the door. And as this monster is beating away at the metal, it becomes very clear he can't get in. He's stuck out there. And Vander smiles and says, well done. They're probably going to get out of there. They're getting his chains off. He's about to be able to escape. They've actually broken through the wall on the other side. They haven't escaped out. But then we remember there's a character missing. Powder. She still thinks that they're in danger. And she's come with this tiny little contraption, a small little robot that will move forward with this marble and smash it. And she prays, she says, please, just this once work. And she sets it forward, thinking that she will save them. As it crawls forward and begins to move and slam down on that marble. It does take out the villains. It also blasts down the door they could not get through, and debris begins to fall on all of her friends. Vi watches, crushed, as her 2 friends are immediately killed by the rubble falling on top of them. She looks and sees Vander half crushed with a massive rock on him, and she's pinned down and begins to sob. Meanwhile, Powder, as she flies away, the shockwave blasting her backwards, is elated, a smile on her face. Something she built worked. It's at this point where things go downhill. Vander is able to push the debris off of him and fight off that monster, trying to keep it back before eventually being vanquished. He does save Vi, but it's at this point that Powder runs over to Vi and says, "Did you see what I did? It worked." And Vi puts it together. Powder killed her friends. Powder did all of this. At no point did any of these characters do anything out of their realm, out of what a simple level 1 character could do. Yes, they had some magic items. Powder had a very powerful arcane bomb, say a delayed blast fireball of some sort, and Vi had these gauntlets of ogre strength. They did things with those items, but they didn't stray outside of what a level 1 character did. And more importantly, the events which would shape them were shown clearly. An amazing backstory where they never went outside what they did, but it showed what they would become. And I think that's amazing. So what did I learn from Arcane? And did I just take this for no other reason than to kind of talk about the show? Yeah, I did. I loved it. I am so excited to watch the next 3 episodes. But at the end of the day, I learned something important for D&D backstories. 1, in the backstory, show what your character will become. Begin to give foreshadowing of where they're going to go. You don't have to give specifics, but show where they're going to go and why they're taking that path. 2, show the important event which shaped them. Show that moment that helps them realize, this is the path I will go down. And 3, give them important character ties. At the end of the day, at the end of the show, Vi and Jinx went their separate ways. Vi was furious, hated her sister, and her sister felt betrayed that she had been abandoned. She screamed, "Don't go," but Vi did. But Vi did try to go back to her and was stopped. And now the two of them would forever be separated and enemies. Now, will that remain till the end of the show? Who knows? But in their backstory, they had very important character ties. Things that would always be important to them. And that's very important for a backstory. So, I hope you guys enjoyed me rambling and recounting this story. I was just very excited to talk about the show. This really didn't have a whole lot to do with D&D, but God, I loved it, and I wanted to talk about it. So go out into the world, make it your own, you beautiful bastards. Don't forget to have a great day, and never forget to play your role. Thank you. Come again.